Still got it.
Let's just get to it. I really want to talk about StuGo. It's probably the first time since Centaur World Season 1 way back in 2021 that a new show struck me this hard in the taste buds. 2021. All the way back when I was still happy. I won't go over the whole cartoons are dead and we all live in hell now spiel again, but needless to say, I've been adrift at sea with this hobby as of recently. Good and even great shows would pass me by, and maybe I'd even watch a few, maybe even open up the old Google Doc for old time's sake and write up a fresh new video, but nothing really clicked. Nothing. Even amazing shows I loved ignited the passion that spawned all those previous videos for quite some time. Until now, baby girl, because dear God have I been struck by holy lightning and need to share my love for this big dumb show. I mentioned this in my Primos video, but for those who haven't seen it or don't want to see it because they can't handle the smug anime tater, I have a sort of mixed relationship with DTVA shows. Many of them are fantastic. I've even done videos on some of my faves like Wander Over Yonder or DuckTales.
Why don't you have any pictures of people's feet?
Because that would be weird? I don't...
However, there always feels like a certain safety and style to the proceedings. A certain set of tropes and characters, a certain cadence to the storytelling. Hell, it's one of my criticisms of Primos. It could be very funny, but it was rarely surprising. I chalk this up mostly to me being 30, and I'm okay with that. I am genuinely totally fine adjusting my expectations and thoroughly enjoying kids shows for what they are. Did I not claim that Bluey Season 3 was one of the best seasons of any cartoon I've ever seen? Did I not also cry watching the big finale? Yeah! But StuGo hits different. It's just so stupid and amazing. It's truly in a league of its own and may very well have the potential to be one of the best and funniest shows ever made. Though my time with StuGo has been brief, it quickly shot its way up to permanent fave territory. Maybe not quite on that OKKO, this is changing my life tier, but it's honestly not that far behind. I'm talking full-on obsession, yapping about it to my friends, watching episodes with my coworker, rewatching episodes when I'm bored, joining a Discord server with a fraudulent moderator, and I believe the show itself 1000% merits this level of excitement from me. Don't believe me? Well, dear viewer, lucky for you, I got way too many words to type after this paragraph that will hopefully help you see things the way that I do. Join me, and let's take a little island vacation and figure out why StuGo is actually StuGoat. Right off the bat, the premise spoke to me. A group of weird and nerdy kids, an island full of mutants and kaiju, a hot-ass scientist lady who's like 60. Those are all my favorite things. Add in the summer camp setting, and I guess heavy air quotes on summer camp here, and it's a perfect aesthetic and story cocktail. To quickly explain, a group of kids are chosen to spend the summer with the world-renowned Dr. Lullah. Unfortunately, she's evil and just used them for a hilariously petty task of troubleshooting her crime laser to draw her face on the moon. Despite telling the kids to piss off, they insist on getting what they signed up for and force this evil scientist into performatively engaging with these kids like they are her real lab assistants. Actually, worth noting in the pilot and a few of the early episodes, the idea of them being super nerds and overachievers and geniuses is a much bigger deal. This kind of comes up at the very end of the show in the final episode, but otherwise is more or less dropped as the series goes on. Episodes like Nanny Tea in which Lullah shoves off her own responsibilities to a mutant manatee who ends up rewarding the kids with a constant supply of stickers to keep them motivated, leans pretty hard into this fact. I still think it's a really funny episode, but it definitely feels a bit simplistic or even out of character that everyone except Francis would be so eager to please, especially with how conniving and rebellious Pliny acted towards Lullah just in the first pair of episodes. The super genius thing is obviously still a foundational element for the kids' personalities, but the show goes out of its way to flesh them out a lot more than their specific talents. This is a completely insane show with some wild-ass comedy, but it does in fact have a really good basis of character humor rather than random or gag-based humor. Like, a Sara episode will be one way, and a Merian episode will be another way, and you get the occasional group episode here and there. The setting itself is also worth praising. I may be more of a cold temperature guy, call me Ned Stark cause I'm always thinking about winter coming, but I fucking love summer as a setting, and dear God, do I love island settings even more. I don't even know what it is, but I can blame Jack and Daxter for that. When I finally played Wind Waker as a teen, it was like a religious experience. I think it has to do with the liminal nature of it, but like in a good and cozy way and not like the backrooms kind of way. Like every millennial who grew up on Tumblr, Wind Waker remains my favorite Zelda, and it and Jack and Daxter, which I talked about a lot in my Stormhawks video for some reason, are among my favorite pieces of fiction. Even shit like the Caribbean level of Kingdom Hearts 3 is like peak gaming for me. Well, actually the Toy Story level is the best one in that game, but the Caribbean is close. And to loop back to the actual video topic, StuGo really embraces its Caribbean setting, even down to Dr. Lullah being from Trinidad and Tobago, and the most prominent mutant, Chicho, being a Hispanic alligator. But even more than the premise speaking to me was the tone. Now, I have made it abundantly clear, especially in this past year, that I am a Cartoon Network fanboy above all else. But it's not just a surface level similarity to Clarence or Adventure Time visually that appeals to me. It's a specific sense of humor and a creative sensibility that I feel can sometimes be lacking in most other Disney TVA shows. I think Titmouse is really good at nailing it due to their cross-pollination and their fingers in the pies of many studios. In shows like Amphibia or Molly McGee or even Big City Greens, all of which are great shows, there's still that Gravity Falls like kinda snarky and overwritten vibe to all the dialogue that can wear on me, as well as a feeling of a really obvious formula for every episode. Sometimes I don't need the children's show characters to tell me the lesson out loud, and neither do the children. Sometimes you just have the conflict end and then smash cut to the end of the episode with a dumb joke. Obviously, it's only a minor gripe towards those aforementioned shows. Maybe one day I'll do an Owlphibia video, because I do have weirdly nuanced opinions on both shows. But needless to say, the more chaotic nature of StuGo is irresistible. And that's how I would describe the tone. More so than even wacky or goofy, chaotic. Actually, I sat down and watched some episodes of Pickle and Peanut, which Ryan Gillis and Sunil Hall basically ran the ship for during the entire second season, and realized people in 2015 were dumb as fucking shit, because that show is funny as hell. It is, however, not a real show with a real world, if you know what I mean. That's where the StuGo difference comes in clutch. It's not quite like Pickle and Peanut or even OKKO to an extent, where it's barely holding itself together as a real show with its flagrant rule breaking and disregard for reality, but it absolutely goes places and does things you'd never expect a modern cartoon to do. In Sister Swim, which I will probably talk about multiple times because it's a critical StuGo episode, I simply could not believe that they had Merian and her dolphin sister Tara, we'll get to it, use sonic waves to violently explode two ichthyosaurs in the climax. Like, blood and gore and all. This isn't me saying, this isn't a kid's show anymore, or it's a secret adult joke or whatever. I'm celebrating that it is a kid's show, and it has some actual teeth. Lots of mentions of death, lots of brutal physical violence. There's a tangible sense of danger around every corner, and it just adds to the whole package. I think maybe the crown jewel of this show, however, is its cast of characters. I'm a fan of a good ensemble cast where you can pick a fave, but also every character is so good that you can understand any one of them being someone else's fave. I've already mentioned how strong the character-driven comedy of the show is, but that's just because you can literally put any of these kids in any scenario and it'd be hilarious because they are hilarious. So buckle in, dear viewers, because most of the rest of the runtime of this video is going to be dedicated to yapping about these nerds. Pliny and Merian act as the pseudo-main characters. They both have a ton of episodes focused on them, and Pliny is definitely the leader type and the face of the show. I think what helps Pliny stand out from the torrential ocean of quirky girl protagonists in Disney shows is her practical knowledge. She is a field biologist and can and will get her hands dirty with work and research. And yes, having a skill does not equal a personality. This naturally informs who she is as a person. Pliny takes a leading role in the group because of her curiosity and excitement about the world around her, keeping everyone in line and focused. She also has a short fuse when it comes to her pride and is quick to anger or blame outside forces for screwing her over rather than any flaw in her own logic. This isn't the healthiest outlook, but confidence and determination is important in her field, so yeah, she is a proactive, get things done kind of girl. Also, gotta give it up to Tanya Gennady for turning in a wonderful performance as her. Her voice and energy is so delightful and can go from bright and cheery to smug and full of it in a heartbeat.
Oh, you spotted that, huh? That's my lasagna mullet. Tony in the front, lasagna in the back.
Her rivalry with Dr. Lullah begins from the pilot, but really is firmly established in episode 1B, Dog Eat Dog. There, she has the rude awakening that Lullah means it when she says that the kids are on their own with dealing with the mutants after they steal their food. Everyone else is sorta helpless, except my goat Sara, who is more than willing to kill, but Pliny stays steadfast in her belief that things will work out if they just use their words. This does not work out, as the mutants are stupid as hell, and they also just don't really care about the contest that she proposes. I really appreciate how dynamic this episode is. It starts with the inciting incident and the contest, the twist that incredible violence is necessary to get your way, and then the second twist that the mutants are just as badly off as the kids, and then the final twist of them teaming up to steal the food from Lullah, with Lullah herself being proud of them. A lesser show would have just had the contest work, or maybe end with them sharing the food, but both groups teaming up to loot from Lullah's stash is a great establishing moment for this show. And through this episode and the later Finders Kelpers, we really see that Lullah pays special attention to Pliny and is uniquely impressed by her gumption. This makes the full circle moment in the finale, season finale, not series finale, please God, feel all the more satisfying. But we'll get to that later in the video. Stench Mensch is probably my favorite Pliny episode and one of my favorites in the whole series. The whole plot hinges on Pliny's stubbornness, in which he tries to help out a smelly little grub that looks suspiciously familiar, while Dr. Lullah browbeats her into just giving up. It's a rare episode with only one of the kids present and goes great lengths at highlighting both Pliny herself and Dr. Lullah as a person. She is typically very cold and cynical and brutally blunt, but still can't quite get through to Pliny how hopeless the situation is. This episode has the show's trademark humor, but it slows things down and tells a more character-rich and even emotional story. The whole episode, Dr. Lullah is hounding Pliny to give up and sign an NDA so that they can just get out of there. Pliny keeps putting it off and causing a bigger mess, even roping Lullah herself into helping. When it seems like all hope is lost, the next morning, on the day that the grub will die, Lullah wakes up to the lab all clean and the paper signed. Yet Pliny is still out there trying to help it either way. Lullah is again impressed and understands all at once what it means to this kid and does something selfless for her in return. Again, as funny as the show can be, this right here is so satisfying to see and is probably my favorite moment in the show from a storytelling perspective. Ironically, the episode titled Francis's Last Straw is what really finalized these character traits for me. I'll definitely loop back to this one when I talk about Francis, but the fact that Pliny holds strongly to her convictions when negotiating in the game that they are playing, even though Francis has revealed herself to be a brutal despot that refuses to budge, really sells how hard it is for Pliny to leave well enough alone or give up on something. She always assumes everything will be fine and go well first and foremost, and does everything in her power to bend reality to conform to that if it doesn't. The other most major kid is Merian. I didn't think I'd like her at first, seeing that she could have easily been a stereotypical girl boss style character, and they are definitely evoking that with her design, but there is so much more texture to her than that. She is on another dimension of lame loser than everyone else. I only have ever heard Zosia Mamet as Hekapoo in Star Versus, so hearing her embody the complete opposite end of the spectrum in terms of characters is very funny, and her whiny, stress-induced voice is so good. Really just a big shout out to all the writing and voice acting for this show, because all these kids will have me complimenting their vocal performances. Out of all the kids that crave validation, she is the ultimate champion of this. She may look a lot like Mabel, but she is 100% a dipper. In a truly god-tier Yuri episode, Francis Wants to Be Alone, we learn that she takes rejection so hard that she forced her parents to move states after being ghosted by a previous friend. This fact is way funnier with the context that her parents are marine biologists, so I really hope they didn't move inland when they moved. Anyway, in this episode, Merian crashes out so hard due to being unable to read Francis that she recruits Sara and Chip to help her spy on her, looks through weeks of security cam footage, and then eventually is able to confront Francis on the beach, but I'll save that for later. You can also see this taken to its logical extreme with Big Ol' Head's Egg Salad Adventure, where her 30-year-old self and her 60-year-old self appear to haunt her and give her conflicting messages about the near future. Even 20 years later, she still takes things that are minor problems or slightly embarrassing or uncomfortable and evolves them in her head into catastrophe. I also love Pliny in this episode being directly hurt by how indecisive and anxious Merian is being.
Come on, Pliny. Hey, I'm Aeoliing over here.
No, Merian. I'm not aeolieing over here.
Not only that, but this is an example of StuGo's tendency to abruptly end an episode, actually really helping to reinforce the themes of the episode while still being funny. This is also one of the rare few Merian and Pliny focus episodes. They definitely seem like they've been friends the longest of all the kids. Either that or they just hit it off really well, because it'd be really funny if Pliny had no clue that her school friend was literally the human sibling of Tara and the human sibling, given her love for dolphins.
Wait! I made this once in case a dolphin ever wanted to leave the water and be my friend.
Speaking of, Merian's anxiety and validation seeking starts to make perfect sense in the episode Sister Swim. We learn she was raised as a baby alongside a dolphin calf, similar to many real-world examples of dubious science experiments with chimps, but since the dolphin could actually speak English, she stole the spotlight and Merian was just relegated to the human sibling. When Tara shows up at the island to check on Merian, all those dark feelings of inadequacy come bubbling back up, especially with how much Pliny loves dolphins. Can I stop for a second and say how adorable this is? The fact that she went on dolphin forums as a kid and knew who Tara was before this episode is both extremely cute and really good world building. I mentioned the insane climax of this episode before, but I would be remiss to not mention the scene where Merian watches the old footage of her and Tara together. It's an obvious emotional beat, but damn it, it still gets me. In the Sister Swim scene where it cuts between the past and the present, and even Dr. Lullah is moved by all of it, pure magic. But I think the episode that sealed the deal for me with Merian was Deep Trent. Mariana Trent, the weird adult woman that they find underwater, acts as a grim reflection of Merian's future. Trent herself is such a gem of a character, with her deep mental trauma and single-minded devotion to counting fish that's equally adorable and existentially horrific.
What is your dream job?
To count fish, why?
Through Trent, Merian realizes that sometimes hard work is not rewarded at all, but also that sometimes people are fine doing menial labor forever, which are two pretty important lessons for anyone to learn, but especially someone as driven by anxiety as Merian is. Now, I want to get into some of the harder characters to talk about, and mostly act as comic relief, starting with Chip. I think it's safe to say that Chip is the funniest character to everyone who works on the show. Just going on Sunil Hall's Blue Sky, you can see dozens of spelunking incident comics with a character that looks suspiciously like Chip, dying in complex and horrific ways in a cave. This energy is alive and well for Chip. Most jokes around Chip are just him getting horribly maimed or fucked up in some terrible way. It's very funny. Zach Reno is just a hilarious performer, and every line read for Chip is funny, with his southern twang and overly confident demeanor.
You have been selected to receive a free gift card. Click here to claim your prize.
And the thing I love about this show is that sometimes the confidence these kids have is 100% justified. It'd be so easy to just make Chip a constant fail son, but he is actually extremely talented with robotics, botany, and even cooking. Probably my personal favorite Chip episode, Breakfast at Chippine's, revolves around his savant cooking skills and his pride. Eventually, he finds himself going on a foraging quest with a very adorable pig mutant for the ultimate mushroom, which then of course escalates into a super intelligent mycelium network infecting the pig and devouring his friends. And while yes, the crazy scenario is funny and exciting, for me it's just nice to have a big payoff be that Chip truly is amazing at cooking, and the entire climax of the episode where his food is so good that it heals Merian's depleted sense of taste literally blows her socks off, which saves Rianne, and it's all set to this awesome new wave music. It all just kind of brings a tear to my eye when Rianne asks,
Did we blow their socks off?
Every last one.
to say nothing of the big kiss, which gets a resounding hell yeah from me. What a wonderful show this is. However, the other more interesting facet to his character is in how his role as the oldest and toughest of the group manifests. As soon as the first episode, Chip casts off his old name of Juniper Hedgemaze and takes on the mantle of Chip Manhands, and believe it or not, but multiple episodes tackle his masculinity, both toxic and positive, and his paternalistic role in the group. A running thread in the first season is Chip's rivalry with badass survivalist and lone wolf Niels Wolfren. In No Man Hands is an Island, after consuming a bunch of his DVDs, Chip takes on the role of a distant protector to his friends and refuses to accept any help. The whole plot really reminds me of the phenomenon of guys getting really into Andrew Tate and Joe Rogan and shit out of a genuine desire to better themselves, and then, whoops, they believe aliens built the pyramids now and think IQ is real. It only makes sense that when Chip encounters the real Niels, and he remains steadfast in his own version of toxic masculinity, that it's Chip accepting his friend's help that actually lets him meet and exceed Niels. In the second Niels episode, Chunk Beast Knuckles, very good name, Chip ends up being so insecure that he genetically modifies himself into a freakish chimera purely so that Niels would think he is cool enough to hunt. When it backfires wildly, with Niels doing the same thing to himself, in which an anime Sakuga fight takes place, it's Chip's whiny baby nature that gets him to give up. There's more to talk about with this episode, but I'll leave that for the Larry's section.
Chip, flower baby tender touch.
Oh, wow, I don't like that.
Yeah, I'll probably just go back to man hands.
But, on the topic of toxic masculinity, is Alpha Beta Chip. First of all, this episode rules because Johnny Pemberton voices a character literally named Peanut. Second, It rules because it's really the first time we see Chip's machismo have very little to do with actually being strong or pushing people around. They may be man hands, but those hands are for stopping fights, not starting them. It's through manipulation on Peanut's end that Chip accidentally becomes a prize fighter in a betta-fish ring after slapping the shit out of everyone in his way to protect Peanut. One thing I love about this episode is that Chip is actually just really good at fighting. Like, obviously most of the fights are comedically pathetic, but at the end against the final betta, when he has to work alongside Peanut who has just stolen his arms, he absolutely decimates this guy. Then, to truly prove how much of a Chad he is, he dismantles all of betta society by giving the opponent a hug and stopping all conflict forever. I don't know, Chip is a very versatile character, despite his common role as someone who eats shit and dies. He has his blustering machismo and his undue confidence, but also his sense of honor and duty towards his friends, as well as his sensitive side. I don't think I've ever been bored or disappointed with a Chip episode, even in minor roles. The other boy, Larry, is definitely a little more one note. That's not to say he's a bad character or anything. Nobody on Earth could convince me any of these kids are bad characters, but he doesn't get a ton of depth this season. We're still gonna dig in for way too long though, because who do you think I am? We're about to go deep in on the funny little comic relief guy. Maybe his most defining trait, because 2 episodes revolve around it, is his reckless nature as a reaction to his stifling home life and his ability to stumble headfirst into danger and even get maimed by it, yet remain a spot of sunshine. And of course, the performance by Loma Tuck is stellar. I know them primarily as Ruby in Steven Universe, but they bring a wildly different energy here, much more cheery and delightful than the rough and tumble Ruby. His first big highlight is noodle it a little bit. Pliny teaches him the hidden technique of noodling, and he begins to take it further and further. Unfortunately, as funny and amazing as this episode is, it's Pliny that gets the focus here as the main. Her own eagerness to confront new challenges and her issues with being able to stop things before they go too far, she always assumes the best in everyone, and like I said in her section, this can lead her to getting upset and angry when things do not play out exactly like she wanted. Larry eventually summoning Meteor like Sephiroth in Final Fantasy VII is hilarious, and I love it, but I think the only insight it gives us into Larry beyond his reckless streak is his feeling of betrayal at the hands of Pliny when she says that he has to stop being Linguini Larry. He even compares Pliny to his music instructor, seeing her as just another controlling and stifling person like Mr. Ziegler was, and this all definitely tracks with the fact that the first thing that he did in the first episode when they started their quest was take off his polo shirt and never wear it again. The other big episode that focuses on his recklessness, and maybe my chalk pick for the funniest episode in the series, is Shell Shocked. Very similar to I Had an Accident in SpongeBob, it begins as the fairly typical aversion to danger after an incident plot, but takes every one of the dumbest and funniest turns that you could expect.
Relax, that bee back there was actually pretty chill.
Come on, guys, let's jack him up. Let's get him.
The problem here is, like a lot of StuGo eps, there's not like a moral or something for me to extrapolate from. Yes, Larry learns that he can't be afraid of death forever and returns to his regular status quo of being a risk taker, but it's intentionally conveyed very vaguely and poorly for comedic effect. It's not like Merian, the secondary main of the episode, was like moved and changed to be more reckless herself. It in fact feels kind of out of character for Larry, given what we know about him, but it's really funny, so who cares? Birdieguard is probably my personal favorite from him, and definitely comes the closest to really exploring him as a character in a way that reveals some extra layers, while still being very funny, of course. His devotion to Elizabeth and all the shots of nature and those brief moments of joy alone with her are pretty beautiful and feel very parental. This gets driven home harder and harder as the episode goes, and he's forced to put Elizabeth in increasingly more secure cages for her own good, because she is his responsibility. It's only at the end when he rejects that and with a last-minute scare from the Night Heron that he finally understands that things sometimes only look scary to a parent but will turn out fine. The solution is rarely to shelter them forever. Funny enough, we see all of Larry's parental issues rolled into one episode with Zorb's, Zorbular Orb, Rorb, Borb, Zorbs, where his Zorb is literally a shitty diaper baby that sucks, where everyone else got their Bionicle Ultra Beasts.
Skullin, the unpredictable bad boy Zorb! They've hidden a very dangerous knife somewhere on this island!
Show me where, Skullin.
Mr. OK in this case plays the role of the parent that is forcing their kid to be something that they're not by trying to help Larry unleash his Zorb's power, but he is actually able to gain some clarity and is the first to realize that the Zorb is fine the way it is, even if it sucks. It never needed to change or have some secret hidden potential. That would undermine Larry's character thus far. And looking back on the episode Chunk Beast Knuckles, we can really see that he looks up to Chip like a big brother or otherwise positive role model, preferring Chip's sweet and sensitive side over him being the tough guy. It's one of the few times he is not purely comic relief, and I kinda wish these two got paired up more, but c'est la vie.
Larry, the flower didn't do anything. Is this what you meant?
I'm not sure what I meant.
And now we come to Francis, the fan favorite, the most enigmatic, but arguably the most fascinating. In such a chaotic show with manic characters screaming or getting into trouble, Francis is like a nice break from all of that. I think the Peanuts influence really shines brightest with her, not just in terms of her character design, but all the dry humor that she lays out, and how it's pretty much always effortlessly funny.
Am I the monster they always said I was?
Like Larry, she doesn't get a ton of singular focus episodes that's illuminating on who she is deep down, nor does many of her secondary roles go beyond, she's weird and that's okay.
Francis.
But what we do get is extremely good, and her presence is oftentimes the best part of any given episode. I mean, going off of friends of the show and official StuGo CEO Calamity Pan's Twitter posts, every single Francis scene has gone viral apparently. Huge shout out to Gabori Sidibe, who brings a wonderfully dull delivery to Francis and makes it sing. Her voice just really stands out among the mains, and every single line she says is made way funnier by how passionless she is by saying it, but there's always that smile, so you know that she's just vibing. Now, I obviously can't talk about literally every random moment that she steals a scene, but I can definitely talk about her few true focus episodes and revisit a few that we've previously talked about with her in mind. Mailbog was her first big hit for me. Her leading the charge to deliver mail because she feels so strongly about the civic duty of mail couriers is very charming. Not to mention her encountering the final boss from Pikmin 4. It's not the deepest episode, but I genuinely love any show that will give credit to menial labor like mail delivery, no matter how tongue-in-cheek. It also is just a really great ensemble episode with all the characters getting some time to shine. This also really cements the fact that Francis can be very single-minded when she gets her mind onto something, though she does falter a bit at the end when Merian is in danger. Yuri mayhaps? Actually, I like to see this episode as a reflection of the experience of you being really into something, and then all your friends get into that same thing vicariously because they're all pumped up on your energy, but then one by one they all lose interest until you're alone and questioning if it's even worth it to still care. Huh. Maybe this episode is kind of deep actually. Anyway, speaking of Yuri, I of course have to again highlight Francis Wants to Be Alone, because while the bulk of the episode is about Merian crashing out, the ending brings it back to Francis, and is maybe one of the most touching moments in the entire series. Merian is finally able to confront her fears and straight up ask if Francis hates her, which actually makes Francis take pause for a second and say,
What? No, I love you.
That part always gets me. It's just so rare to see such a pure moment like that in a cartoon. It's just really nice to have a character say, even platonically, I love you to someone else to ease their mind. Frances explaining that people just assume how she feels without ever really asking feels way too real for anyone that's on the spectrum. And it's also nice to see her immediately ask about Samantha when Merian brings her up, practicing what she preaches. For sure, one of the best episodes in the whole series for me. Like I said, not every episode needs to be deep or emotional or whatever to be a hit, but I think this show does such a good job at tackling these moments. They always feel unexpected yet appreciated, and they never really detract from the comedy or the tone of the rest of the series, making it too sappy or too preachy. It all feels very natural to me, and I think that's because it doesn't happen literally every episode. It doesn't feel as rote as it could feel in some other shows. But probably her greatest episode in my opinion, and definitely in my top 5 overall, is Frances's Last Straw. Holy shit, this episode is incredible. I almost don't want to spoil it, but I feel like I'd be doing Frances a disservice if I didn't talk about the time that she became an evil empress. I love that this episode pits Pliny and Frances against each other and shows how, as admirable as their determination can be in some places, it can also literally destroy everything around them if left unchecked. I know that sounds really dramatic, but trust me, this is a very funny episode. We see firsthand that Frances does not play around. She will do exactly what she sets out to do and will take everyone down with her if she's cornered as punishment for daring to defy her. As someone who hates competitive games because I get way too into them and take great pleasure from destroying the hopes and dreams of children on Master Duel Ladder, I fully understand why Frances didn't want to play geodiplomacy and invoke bad Frances once more. Alright, there's no more delaying it. We gotta talk about my fave. We gotta talk about her. Or I guess we gotta talk about them. Sara and Sara. If the crown jewel of this show is its character work, then the shiniest, most excellent facet of that jewel is Sara. Where do I even begin with her? She's just so much. I have mentioned before that the troublemakers tend to be my favorite types of characters. It's just very easy to be engaged with someone who's always cooking, always looking out for number one, always doing ridiculous self-serving shit for short-term benefit. It's why I ended up loving Tater and Primos so much. Her flaws extended much deeper than being naive or overly eager. I also really love characters with layers and layers of inner darkness that only the most profound therapy that hasn't been invented yet could unpack. Again, a lot like I said about Nellie, also from Primos. What happens when these two are mixed together? You get the ultimate life form. What do I mean by that? Let's crack in. While Pliny, Merian, and Chip all have massive egos due to their intelligence, Sara's confidence is in a different league. She fully believes she is better than every single one of her friends at pretty much anything. Not even in a malicious way, in a matter-of-fact way. Like, of course they're not as smart or beautiful or talented as me. She's a true narcissist. I think from early on I found her vibe pretty funny, as well as her design. Always appreciate a fat kid in a show as a fat kid myself, and her blank, kinda wall-eyed stare and often breathless delivery really paints the picture of a kid who is extremely awkward, but masks it in layers and layers of hype, and then commits so hard that she buys her own hype. There's of course another facet to her that is very important, but we'll get to that in a bit. It goes without saying at this point that her voice performance by Deborah Baker Jr. is so good. 100% my favorite performance in the whole show. Her voice is just so versatile. She can have that out-of-breath kind of awkward register and then switch to nasally and high-pitched, more of a scheming voice, and it all just fits. She also has the honor of giving us what I would genuinely consider the first real banger-ass, really funny episode with Goat Racket. Sara ends up setting up a protection racket to con Larry out of some beans and ends up getting caught up in an escalating web of lies. I feel like the show was already going to the beat of its own drum at this point, I mean, we had gotten an episode where the kids play with Lullah's collection of Ultraman Sofubi toys, and Pliny has a kaiju brawl and delivers a titty twister to a pterodactyl, but Goat Racket really establishes how far the show is going to bend the traditional cartoon plot structure into something more interesting and unexpected. It's one thing to have the whole, you should never lie because then it will soon grow until it's blah 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 plot, but it's another thing to have the real twist be that Sara and Larry just conned everyone else together and that the only way to fix a lie is with an even bigger lie. Perhaps a prophetic statement referencing future events with this character? It's no surprise my favorite character would have my favorite episode, and I think while Sister Swim made me really emotional over the relationship between Merian and her sister, who is a dolphin, Moon Moon made me emotional over the beauty of personhood via a moon rover with a Bishonen anime boy face. I love how the episode starts with Sara being completely checked out in regards to Van and readily willing to murder him. She only accepts the mission to kill him just to annoy Chip and rub it in his face that she is better than him. It's only when she finally sees that this brooding robot boy is actually an artist that she is genuinely floored by the effort and talent on display. Actually, big ups to Chip for locking the fuck in when Sara failed her mission because of her new love for Van. I always appreciate the few times that they make the kids eager pawns in Lullah's morally dubious schemes. Having the morally dubious Sara be the one to have a change of heart and want to preserve Van from destruction really hits well after the previous episode that we talked about.
Of course I trust you, Sara Sara not robot.
Cool, never mind. Good job.
And yes, it's another one with an ending that is so stupid that it loops back around to being really sweet, then stupid, then sweet again. With the butt that Van was painting on the moon revealed to actually be a heart for Sara. And now we must talk about Sara. Not Sarah, but Sara, with an H. At a little over halfway through the season is the episode Shape Sister, where it's revealed, this whole time, that Sara was not one coherent character, but actually two twin sisters who have been gaslighting the other kids this whole time into thinking that there's just one Sara. To what end? Well, you only get one dramatic reveal. Now, I don't think that this was intentional really, but I do think that it's funny, this being a DTVA show, and one of the most famous twists in any DTVA show is a twin reveal. In Gravity Falls, it was the buildup of a season and a half of mystery, but here it's so hilariously casual and just plain baffling that I can't help but respect it even more so. Like, objectively, this makes Sara a worse character, and all of her episodes and interactions are less meaningful since we never know which Sara is the one involved in any given story. It's just a needless level of confusion and messiness that breaks the world for a really stupid joke, but it's also a really good joke, so who cares, right? That's my greatest weakness as a YouTube review guy, I guess. If I am entertained by something, I can pretty much forgive any stupid ass story decision, and sometimes the stupidity of a decision rockets it way up in entertainment value for me. It really helps that in perfect StuGo form, they devise a genuinely heartwarming moment while the Saras try to avoid being brutally murdered by Pliny and her gorilla arm, and they confide in each other how all this gaslighting and the secrets have only brought them closer together. This episode also has the distinction of the funniest joke in the entire series for me, which I will not spoil, but I'll just say for those who have seen the episode that it involves Larry confronting his fears. And, believe it or not, and this floored me, but it gets even dumber. Not only is this twin reveal 100% canon and teased in multiple ways leading up to this, including in the intro, but somehow they are able to write a plot that creates a third Sara, and she continues to stick around too. Infinity Braid is a pretty funny episode about Sara's need to constantly be in the limelight and how toxic and destructive that can be. Also, she has an intertemporal hair braid that encompasses all of existence, And also a pissed off woolly mammoth mom shows up and kills all of her friends.
Just let her have the sauce.
Really though, the best and final showcase of the Saras and their character traits in general and what makes them funny and compelling is in the episode with the best title, Elephant Triumvirate Book 6 Trumcumvirate Triumphant. Not only do we get Sara, and Sara all playing off of each other as they try to ghostwrite the ending to a terrible YA fantasy series starring elephants to appease their friends, which of course fits right in line with Sara being a pathological liar and attention seeker, but they're all playing off of Merian in this episode. Sara has always been a bit more cynical and mean to Merian than she is to the others, probably because her neediness is the only thing that outpaces Sara's. It's really nice then, for what may very well be the final episode between these two, that we get to see Merian be the one that's annoyed with her, and Sara being the eager to please one and eventually having to eat shit and apologize for lying so much about the book. One small aspect of this episode that I love is when Merian is pushing Sara away at the start of the episode. It feels so real with her mix of impatience and embarrassment. Like, she knows how dorky their book club is and doesn't want Sara to come in and ruin their fun. It's okay, Merian. She's a tasteless anime fan, so you are superior to her in that regard. I also really love the artwork that they made for the Elephant Triumvirate books. I would watch a whole Redwall style cartoon exactly like this. Okay, this section is going way too long, but I do want to highlight a few more moments from other episodes that really fill out the complete Sara picture. First off, I love how Lullah's game, she spends the whole time as the outward manipulator, picking everyone off one by one in the game, but at the end and on a rewatch, you realize that it was actually Pliny using her as a scapegoat, and she outplayed Sara in the gaslighting competition. And I also want to highlight Francis's last straw one more time, because in that, and the very early episode Nanny Tea, Sara becomes a cop almost immediately. I think this really speaks to her need to constantly be above others. It's not entirely out of a sense of personal superiority, though that is there. It's also kind of a defense mechanism. She licks the boot of authority and acts as an enforcer to the other kids so that the authority, in this case Francis, doesn't crush her out of necessity. Overthinking a comedy children's cartoon? Oh yeah, baby. But that's what makes this all so funny to me. The fact that they probably thought just as hard, if not even harder, about her dynamic with the world and the other kids, and all the dynamics for that matter, makes it super fun to dissect and talk about, and it's easy to think of countless funny or insane scenarios that you can put all these kids into. Unfortunately, I don't have as much to say about Dr. Lullah and Mr. OK as I do about the other characters. I do, in fact, love Lullah, and yes, I think that she is a MILF. She's not a traditional cartoon mom who's nice, or sweet, or dorky, or whatever. She's a full-on bad mom. A scary wire mother, if you will.
But what if that nourishment came not from a loving mother, but from a scary wire mother?
It doesn't help that being voiced by Lorraine Toussaint gives me huge Shadow Weaver from She-Ra vibes. Another one of my beloved scary wire mothers. Her careless, almost nonsensical cruelty and negligence towards these kids is so funny, and I feel a key ingredient to the show. Even if she is woefully underutilized in the show itself, it's a rare treat to have such an amoral role model in a kids show, and it makes their desire to do free child labor for her out of a desire for validation even funnier. Another thing I love is that as confident and cool as she seems on a surface level, she is just as much of a nerd loser as those kids. She probably, in fact, sees a lot of herself in the kids. What's dorkier than literally recreating Monster Island from the Godzilla series as the place that you live? She can put these kids through the ringer, but there's always that glimmer of doubt that she truly sucks all the way underneath. That's always one of my favorite ways to handle villainous characters. Not as evil monsters, but just as selfish hedonists. Because we have a hard time seeing ourselves as cruel or evil, but it's way easier to relate to somebody who's just doing whatever they want when they want. And sometimes that may be child labor, And sometimes it's help turning a raccoon into Larry or giving Merian a vacation to relax for once. I already talked about her and Pliny and Stenchmensch like 40 fucking minutes ago or whatever, but she gets a pretty great flashback scene with Mr. OK and Truck Everlasting. You can tell that while she is very guarded and sparse with her affection towards the kids, and is usually ambivalent or annoyed by them, she genuinely, truly loves Mr. OK. OK ends up getting a whole bunch of episodes either as a secondary main or even as a focus like with this episode. It's very nice to see a story about people growing old together and being scared of losing that spark through the lens of an evil scientist and her mutant dog assistant. OK really comes into his own in this episode, and he has that lame, quiet janitor energy that I love and feel intensely represented by. And to round off this gigantic section talking about all the characters, I want to give at least a passing mention to all the random mutants and other various side characters. There is more prominent ones like Chicho and Rian that make frequent appearances, but they act mostly as a collective of dumb, weird guys. Sometimes we get peeks into their society, like with the betta fish dominating through slapping prize fights, or the hermit crabs being deathly afraid of everything and having a sort of religious pilgrimage to a place of ultimate safety. There's a whole episode about the night mutants, which is like mildly funny. It's not one of my favorites. I'm also a fan of there being things like that weird action figure lineup of kelp warriors that totally suck, the weirdly elaborate plant society with kingdoms and regicide and lore, as well as the weirdly elaborate quartz society that we see in the first part of the final episode. I love that kind of granular world building for really stupid one-off things in shows like Adventure Time and The Fungies, and they get a lot of legwork out of it in this season. It all implies a much bigger and more insane world without ever needing to actually see it. We are focused on what's most important, the summer camp experience of these kids on this dangerous island with this madwoman. But it's just one sliver of the whole pie. The existence of other villains in a hierarchy like Venture Bros is more or less a fun set dressing, as funny as the Bomb Swapper is as an episode. Though, while it leaves an incomplete picture of the whole scope of this world, I'm glad anytime we get to see some new stupid thing. That's the joy of watching something new, right? Not having any clue what's gonna come next.
Somewhere in the Caribbean, 6 overachieving middle schoolers have been selected to attend an exclusive summer camp.
By the end of the summer, scholarships will be applying to us.
Oh, y'all feel giddy?
That's exactly how I feel. Oh, calm down.
This is just for mutant assistants who just do okay.
Dr. Lullah, this place is amazing! What is it?
Crime laser.
Crime?
Regular laser.
No.
Nobody extorts Dr. Lullah.
But I like the energy.
So we're back in the camp?
There is no camp.
Dr. Lullah, you and I are the same. We're go-getters. We don't let simple things like power outages stop us from getting things done.
I become more and more okay with each instant spent in the ecosystem of me.
It's like Mom and Dad always said. You can only fix a lie with an even bigger lie. Isn't it amazing?
Welcome to the world, little one.
One time, I received a letter and it was nice.
You know, the real world might be dog eat dog, but dogs work best in a pack.
I'll tell you what's unfair. I finally have a summer all to myself, and you had to show up and outshine me.
Friend, to you, I'm just a gorgeous pair of armor.
I like the sneaking around and the planning. I like having secrets with you.
But I'm Linguini Larry.
You made me Linguini Larry.
Keep the straws. You're gonna need them to breathe underwater.
You can't help everyone.
I know, but I can help this one.
I don't believe it. They're doing the sister spin.
Sad to leave your ecosystem?
It was never really mine. I shared it. Just an older piece of mine. I call it a hope of spring and so much winter.
We both like air and dislike hippos.
You know, people don't say that enough.
I love you, Mr. Frost.
Now, the rostrum's off my case. If you'd like, I can take you back to a proper summer camp.
Nah, we'll stay.
Well, good.
Okay, so we've just gotten through a voluminous mountain of content talking about my opinions on the characters and the various quality of the show. Now, before we kick it to the conclusion, I want to hand the microphone over to a friend of mine and somebody who is instrumental in spreading the awareness about StuGo, the StuGo CEO, Pan. They're not actually affiliated with the show. They're just a person on Twitter. Anyway, take it away, buddy.
Ahem. Attention, mutants. I like StuGo quite a lot. Thank you. JK. But seriously though, yes, StuGo means a lot to me, as I'm sure my dear friend Wyatt has made very clear already, given the multiple mentions he's given me across this very, very long video. And you know, it also makes sense, given my online presence as of late, as the self-proclaimed StuGo CEO. But that's obvious if you know me, or even paying attention at all in this video. So let's get back to what we're here for. StuGo. Ever since that ding-dang first look image back in 2023, man, I was hooked to this show. Everything about it was just charming. I loved the art style, I dug the plot, I dug the cast, mainly because of Tanya and Lo's involvement, both of which I knew from Pen Zero and Steven Universe, respectively. The character designs, bro! Oh, man. I love these damn character designs, dude. Oh, man. Especially Pliny and Sara's, who I'll get to later. Now, regardless of having to wait what felt like forever for any sort of news, besides the intro being released, which is super fire, I don't care, my excitement remained. Now, I just knew this show was setting itself up to be the newest along my long list of big hyperfixation cartoons. And that would be true. Having this show in my life was some of the most fun I've ever had, in all honesty. Major vibes when Amphibious Season 3A was just airing and it just exploded my account. And, you know, I had a similar effect StuGo did, which is also why Season 3 is the best part of that show. I don't care. Even if some weeks delivered some mid to pretty ass episodes, not gonna lie, looking at you, episode 19, don't like that one, it was still a good ass time, man, like come on now. Getting more characters like Pliny, Sara, and especially Francis always put a big smile on my face. Hell, they gave Francis the hardest episode of the season, bro, like are you kidding me right now? Heck, even getting more of Chip proved to be such a highlight, who I was initially very worried about going into the show due to how his character would be handled, and he's not perfect. But yeah, he proved to be the funniest one, dude. I'm not gonna lie, man. Zach Reno is such a gem. Now, I could go into the plethora of other StuGo characters, like Dr. Lullah and Mr. OK. But on the other hand, I can talk about my GOAT, Big Mitchell, and you know, how much I love him, and just, you know, how damn quotable this show is, and you know, just be the ultimate StuGo glazer, even though I already kind of am. But really, that ain't the only thing that makes this show so special to me. It's meeting so many friends, so many new friends, like Wyatt, again. Shout out to my guy, Wyatt. It's Only Magic, go to channel, y'all gotta watch it. You know, subscribe and all that stuff. And you know, me blowing up over the show, exposing people to the show, and just honestly having the time of my life with it, especially during a very critical, stressful, and you know, life-changing time of my life, to keep brief. It was really what I needed, and partly what I still need, to be frank. And even if the fate of the show is very uncertain, and has honestly been the most complicated production cycle I've ever seen for a dang cartoon, like it's kind of ridiculous. I hope it gets cleared up at least semi-soon. No matter what happens, it'll always hold a special place in my heart, and has already influenced the work I will hopefully be able to make in the future, that I hope impacts people the same way StuGo did for me. And you know, I just think that's very powerful. Even if a potentially short ride like StuGo, a show that essentially blasted through its episodes in like 4 to 5 months, it managed to leave such an impact on not only myself, but many of those that I'm glad to surround myself with to this very day. And if you haven't checked it out already, I strongly advise you to do so. And I hope it manages to leave an impact on you as well, as, you know, StuGo did for me. So, boost up those Disney Plus numbers when it arrives on July 30th so we can hopefully get, you know, 5 seasons in a movie, and just, you know, get a dang original cartoon blowing up out there in this day and age, which is a whole discussion for another day, especially if, you know, Phineas and Ferb revival coming around the same time as the video coming out. It's funny, it's really funny. But that's all I got for this segment. Thanks again to my guy Wyatt for having me on here. Granted, I kind of begged him to be part of this, and not gonna lie, that's on me, but you know, it's all good, bro. And you know, just remember, stay StuGoated, y'all. And you know, ship player, baby! Yeah, baby, let's do it, woo!
StuGo is, for my money, the most fun I've had watching a new show in so long. Even something like Centaur World or Battle Kitty, which we will get to, don't worry, had my hype for them very concentrated to one weekend due to the streaming format. StuGo has been with me for the entire first half of 2025. Every week, starting from the beginning, I was watching and laughing and hoping for more, hoping the next shocking joke or stupid twist or ridiculous character to love was right around the corner. When I formulated this video, I did so as a solitary man looking to shout into the void about this weird little show I loved getting passed up on. Now though, I do it as an ambassador for a group of fans. Fans that laugh and shriek right alongside me these past months as the season aired. Some people are weird, some may not have the best taste, unlike me, but it's clear to me that this show is special. It struck everyone who loved it like a lightning bolt, and for me, it made me remember why I care about this stuff. And you know, the friends I made along the way was nice too. I probably wouldn't have watched Primos if this show had not crossed my radar first, and I definitely wouldn't have made a video about it. Funny enough, you can thank StuGo for the joy and positivity I tried to spread about that show, and from one underrated gem to another, I am so grateful to be alive and to be as old as I am, and still be shocked and impressed by a new cartoon. Because that's why it's important to talk about and share art. Your stupid idea could go nowhere, and most of the time, that's the case. But sometimes, it could change someone's life. Maybe not even in a major way. Maybe they just remember a joke or a quote that they say to themselves or their friends every so often. Even something like that is so powerful. Even something so dumb and ridiculous like StuGo is powerful. The show has been given an uncertain future, like many other cartoons in 2025. When it comes to Disney Plus at the end of July, apparently it will depend on our support whether or not it gets another season. Believe it or not, the show possibly had a season 2 that was being produced at one point, but was swiftly paused and left in limbo, according to rumor. So is the case for Primos, so is the case for countless other shows. They're just left in limbo. But regardless if the show manages to claw its way back from the void, and dear God, do I hope it can, I urge anyone and everyone to watch. Because it's a gift to be given something as smart and funny and packed with ideas and love as StuGo, and we all deserve that gift. Thank you, StuGo. You really are my StuGoat. Alright, we've come to the end of a way too long video but I really feel like StuGo is the show that deserves this absurd length. This video is possibly longer than my OKKO video. It's definitely longer than my Gurren Lagann video. So it's up there in that echelon of like all my favorite shows. I'm pretty terrified because at some point I do want to do a video about another one of my absolute favorite shows, Beast Wars, which I've been wanting to do for years. And I have no idea how long that's going to be. Given that this random Disney cartoon that just aired this year and is now over took me almost an hour of raw recording time to get through. Who knows how long that's going to be. That won't be in the next video. The next video is going to be on Transformers Earthspark, because I want to talk about that first before we get to Beast Wars. And then I may also do the 3rd season of Adventure Time and pick that series, Adventure Time, pick that back up. But yes, just thank you so much. Oh, a huge thank you to everybody who watched the Primos video. Did not even think for a second it would be that popular, and it ended up being popular enough for me for the first time in 6 years of making videos to actually become a YouTube partner. Unfortunately, that video itself was not eligible because the song City of Angels made it demonetized. This one, hopefully, won't be demonetized. Also, hopefully, will at least be like a 10th as popular as the Primos video. I honestly don't know. I think that show, that video kind of got off being related to the controversy with that show and everything. StuGo, I have no idea how deep the fandom rabbit hole goes, even though I'm part of the fandom pretty deeply this past couple months. But thank you again. Please, like the video, comment, subscribe, all that call to action stuff. And stay tuned, more Cartoon Buffoons coming, more regular videos coming. Also, check out my Metroid channel, Planet Zebez, if you haven't. There's some good stuff over there, and absolutely 0 people watch it. Yeah. Everybody, take care. I'll see you all at the end of July to re-binge StuGo.